Hey y'all, welcome, and just as we get started in this video, congratulations, it's week 7, you made it. We are finishing up the term. By this point you will have turned in your part 2 of your signature assignment, your family of origin analysis paper, and I'm looking forward to reading those and providing feedback. And here's to what has been an excellent sort of 7 weeks to this point. In this week 7 module, we're doing a lot of reading about, first of all, cognitive behavioral approaches to family therapy, and we're doing a reading about population-specific sort of approaches to providing family therapy. In that chapter, you're reading a lot about working with families that have been affected by violence. You're reading about gay and lesbian families. But one of the sort of perhaps sort of family populations that's still on the margins, that is, and research is emerging about working with this group of people, but it is with families that have one or more members that identify in a gender expansive way. And this happens to be one area of particular interest of mine, and I want to spend some time with you talking about how one might think through supporting a family with a young child who is, if not identifying as transgender, certainly showing early signs that they express their gender in an expansive way. I've included in this module a PDF of an article based on a study that I and co-investigators Darius Green and Carly Fleitas, we conducted this research in 2020, and the article was published at the end of 2021. And even though that article is specifically addressing and trying to understand the decision-making process that cis straight parents go through to arrive at a place where they feel confident giving informed consent for their transgender or gender expansive child to go through a medically supported transition. What we sort of evoked from that study was a dissonance to consonance model that parents go through for, first of all, making that decision to give informed consent, but also it seems as though it could be applicable to assisting parents, or at least related to how parents go from sort of a non-affirming or even pathologizing perspective toward their gender expansive child to an affirming sort of stance toward their gender expansive child. And it's relevant to this topic because I have a sort of example family that is struggling with this very thing. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But I wanted to make sure that you have a relatively, at least a basic grasp of this dissonance to consonance model. So the study included 17, we did interviews with 17 parents of transgender youth. The youth ranged from sort of pre-puberty, pre-adolescence through sort of senior year in high school, 17, 18, 19 years old. And each parent that had given consent for their child to undergo either puberty blockers or cross-sex hormone replacement therapy had these key characteristics. Each parent could describe a experience either directly or closely indirectly, like a second degree, of removal, experience of what it feels like to be minoritized or marginalized. What I mean by that is that they had an experience, or that they knew someone closely that had experienced mistreatment related to an aspect of themselves that they could not control. So could have been just the experience of being a woman in our society. Could have been an experience of being black or otherwise a person of color in our society. Could have been the experience of being affectionately expansive or diverse in our society. And they had sort of an ability to understand what that feels like and to empathize with others who are experiencing this type of distress related to being minoritized, marginalized, or in other words, just mistreated in a way that is sort of responding to an aspect of themselves that they have no control over. Additionally, parents indicated that they had a clear openness to new ideas, new information that they had previously not considered. Of course, this openness and the experience of being marginalized, minoritized, sort of mutually informed each other. And then likewise, this openness also seemed to mutually influence this characteristic of being accepting of this new information, and then operationalizing this new information to make a transgender or gender diverse affirming cost-benefit analysis that then led to relief of sort of cognitive dissonance that was created by learning that their child was A, gender expansive, and B, interested in a medically supported transition. And they used this to make a cost-benefit analysis that not only brought relief of that dissonance, but also brought them into consonance or harmony with their child. It improved their relationship with their child. It gave them the relief to see their child experience the relief of being able to or feel empowered to participate in a medically supported transition. So that's sort of this dissonance to consonance model that is in the process, or I guess I should say we are in the process of developing educational and clinical programs that can be tested in sort of objective means. This was a qualitative grounded theory study. We're hoping to use this theory to test programs in a more sort of like a pre-test, post-test, quantitative kind of way. As we are developing that, we encounter families like the Duncan family. So the Duncan family, in fact, the mother, who we'll call Sue. Of course, this is not the real name of the family. But the mother, who we call Sue, and stepdad, who we will call Abe, called me for consultation about how to handle a family dilemma related to their emerging understanding and conceptualization of the behavior of their 5-year-old child, who we will call Sam. So according to Sue and Abe, Sam has been exhibiting sort of behavior and preferences that might indicate that Sam is sort of identifying in a gender expansive way. It should also be noted that there is emerging research that indicates that a 5-year-old's awareness of their gender identity being different than their sex assigned at birth is really not out of the realm of what is to be expected developmentally at this age. If you're interested, I can provide published articles, or at least one in particular that I'm thinking of, that indicates that transgender identity or gender expansive identity develops around the same time that cisgender identity develops. And we've known for a long time that cisgender identity tends to develop around 3 to 4 or 5 years of age. This is related to both biological and environmental factors. And so, Sue and Abe called, indicating that their child may be exhibiting signs of gender expansive identity, may be exhibiting signs of gender dysphoria that could be diagnosed. And these things were relevant because Sam is the child of Sue and Drew. Sue and Drew have divorced, they're no longer together. However, Sue and Drew share custody of Sam. Sam spends the majority of his time at Sue and Abe's residence, but as is often the case, spends regular time with Drew in his household. Now, according to Sue, Drew claims that any signs that Sam is exhibiting sort of what would be considered feminine tendencies. This is a child that's or assigned male at birth. Expressing feminine tendencies is something that he is not seeing. However, Sue is also indicating that when Sam returns to their household, he talks about and exhibits distress about Drew not allowing him to wear dresses and other clothing that would be typically associated with femininity in our society. And Drew is providing some education about how that, some of Sam's behavior is quote unquote not what boys do. Even though Sue and Drew more or less get along amicably, there have been some contentiousness related to custody disputes and custody agreements, and that is at least part of what motivated Sue and Abe to reach out to me through other channels, because they are hoping to sort of disentangle themselves from legal battles and find ways to relieve what they would call distress that they are witnessing in Sam. To try to indicate this, this is sort of our, you'll be familiar with the genogram sort of type of diagram. I've also included a structural map that attempts to show sort of alignment between stepfather and mother, and alignment in a triangle against Drew, the biological father, and the intention here is in the service of protecting and supporting the mental health and physiological health also of the 5-year-old child. So, I'm hoping your wheels are already turning a little bit about how might we help this system to make the developmental adjustment that it has been tasked with as it pertains to strategizing in a mutually agreeable way in the interest of supporting Sam's development. What we see here in many ways might be familiar to you at this point, as sort of a common characteristics of a peripheralized parent who is attempting to set boundaries that conflict with the sort of the other groups, the groups that are, the members that are aligned, it conflicts with their approach to the developmental challenge. And that has evoked sort of contentiousness. Abe even called it sort of legal aggressiveness from Drew. It is also, at least according to Sue, part of the equation that Drew is not interested in seeking professional assistance with solving this dilemma. It's also my understanding that Drew is not necessarily coming at this from a place of transphobia, although it may be more or less a matter of sort of misinformation, lack of understanding of sort of current sort of perspectives on gender identity development. My understanding is that Drew identifies more or less as a progressive person. He attends church and identifies as a Christian, but is not necessarily coming from a tradition that has historically pathologized gender, or at least currently pathologizing gender expansiveness. So, what I attempted to do, is to frame this less as a issue of social justice related to Sam and more of a family system concern, in that Sue and Drew are having great difficulty successfully strategizing and finding a mutually satisfying solution to collaborating around Sam's care. I just want to invite you to think about how might you go about approaching this dilemma? How might you go about naming this problem? How might you go about helping the family sort of tell the story and define the problem, and then perhaps from a narrative or solution-focused approach, help them to re-narrate what is going on for the family and how they want the family to change for the better. And then also think about structurally, how might we help this family arrange itself in a way that is supportive of their of accomplishing their developmental task. Now, what I might do is first of all recognize that according to Sue, Drew does not appear to have openness to new information, right? However, that's really impossible for me to know for sure because Drew is on the periphery and I have not met Drew. So my first move was to do what I could to, because what Sue was requesting was an evaluation, sort of a gender assessment to either confirm or rule out gender dysphoria. And I took the opportunity to say, well, that is something we could do, but I don't know that it would necessarily change much in terms of solving your dilemma, because we are in a state of understanding gender identity, especially as it relates to younger children, that could be easily dismissed by someone who's not interested or who has sort of has made a decision that's fairly rigid and not necessarily open to new information. It might not necessarily solve the problem. It might, in fact, raise the intensity of the conflict and therefore sort of create more difficulty for Sam than is intended. And so my first move here was to, just like with any family that has sort of a peripheralized parent, to invite the peripheralized parent closer to the system, to be a more active participant in the system. And what we are encountering, at least potentially at this point, is adding in what we use a T for therapist here. This is me, of course. So what we're risking is sort of alignment here, here, and then, if nothing else, Drew experiencing sort of conflict, right? That's something that we as therapists must be very careful to find ways to circumnavigate Drew's, or person in Drew's shoes, Drew's defenses, right? So one of the ways we might be able to incorporate the dissonance to consonance model is, in the event that Drew accepts Sue's invitation, or at least my invitation through Sue, because I don't have access to Drew, my invitation through Sue to reach out to me, that allows him to at least have some say in whether or not he talks to me. If he does, he's doing it by choice. And so that takes at least some of the conflict out of it. It levels the power dynamics. He's making a choice. He feels, ideally he would feel empowered, and at least have some curiosity, which would indicate some openness. And then in the event that Drew reaches out, I could take the opportunity to just explore with Drew whether or not he has sort of a working model, so to speak, for what it's like to perhaps be mistreated, dismissed, judged, based on an aspect of himself that is outside of his control. He may already be suspecting that others would be judging him for taking the perspective that he is toward his child. Now, this also offers an opportunity for us to indicate, and this is something that we talked about with Sue too, that we recognize that what Drew wants is well-intended, right? We start from there, recognizing and assuming that Drew is not interested in hurting his child. In fact, he wants to help his child. He just disagrees with Sue about the best approach for that. So, starting with sort of opening up Drew's sort of personal experience, and to what degree does he have the capacity to empathize and maintain curiosity, opening up perhaps his openness to new information, providing credible information from sources that Drew is likely to accept. I need to understand a little bit more about Drew, like what are Drew's values and what shape those values. And then providing information that is from credible sources that Drew is more likely to accept, and then assisting Drew in sorting out, because what are some of the risks of affirming and allowing Sam to essentially run some of Sam's own sort of experiments in terms of their gender expression. What are some of the costs, what are some of the benefits of doing this? There could be what could be motivating Drew is a deep worry that his child will be mistreated, misunderstood, and that perhaps he would be mistreated, because a lot of what motivates our activity towards our children is kind of what we expect will come back to us. Our children, in our society at least, are considered in many ways to be reflections of us as parents, who we are as people, what our values are, what our skills are related to raising children and things of that nature. And there could be some defensiveness cropping up in Drew related to what might come back to him. What kind of type of criticism might he encounter related to affirming his child? Help Drew to work through this cost-benefit analysis and see how it affects their sort of mutual strategizing for caring for Sam. One of the other sort of confounding variables that would be on my mind in a scenario like this is, what is the influence of Abe? I think in a structurally sound scenario, we'll just take me out of it for a moment, recognizing that I will be a part of the system if this goes much further. It might be advantageous, especially if Drew feels some level of animosity or threat from Abe, to move Abe, not necessarily, just move him more into the consultant role. And allow Sue and Drew more freedom to strategize about their biological child. As you might imagine, this might be hard for a new spouse and step-parent, given that they have an alliance with their partner who may be in conflict with their former partner. And so assisting Abe to allow Sue to work things out and to only contribute when Sue requests the contribution, and then also to participate in whatever and support whatever Sue and Drew come up with for Sam, will be another key element of family work with this system. So, this is just sort of I hope you will find a helpful sort of conceptualization of how we might approach family therapy with a system like the Duncans, while also applying emerging sort of theoretical perspectives that come from peer-reviewed research to sort of have a evidence-based type of assistance for a family like this. Keep your eyes open for how this theory develops in terms of its contributions to educational and clinical programming in the service of families like the Duncan family, and of course children like Sam, who are experiencing multiple layers of vulnerability. Not only are they vulnerable because of their developmental level as a 5-year-old child, but they're vulnerable because they express sort of characteristics of an identity that is not widely, or I should say, not pervasively accepted and supported, at least not yet, in our society. I look forward to hearing more about your perspectives, either through individual communication or through discussion board activity. Yeah, look forward to seeing you and talking with you about other aspects of the course as well. This is kind of the last video for this course, and yeah, I look forward to hearing about how it supports your own growth and learning as you move into professional life. Thanks, and y'all take care.